Choram Soki Chanamla, Chanju Baro Dagni Gapsuchi, Dagi Chenin Gibe Choknangi, Jola Panja Sangi. Choram Soki Chanamla, Chanju Baro Dagni Gapsuchi, Dagi Chenin Gibe Choknangi, Jola Panja Sangi. Choram Soki Chanamla, Chanju Baro Dagni Gapsuchi, Dagi Chenin Gibe Choknangi, Jola Panja Sangi, Jopar. Paragate, Parasangate, Body Swaha. Payata Gate, Paragate, Parasangate, Body Swaha. Payata Gate, Paragate, Parasangate, Body Swaha.
심제 담제도 통자 하나만 제가 산제 고마를 뭐 찌내자 도바차 대치도는 자 주스가 납자는 수치는 좀 나와라 신고 토토가 토지쇼 많어 가지고도 안에들 남자도 좀 내기 삼삼제.
So we set our motivation at the outset to do whatever we possibly can to attain a peerless state of enlightenment in order to benefit all living beings. And we know that in order to do that, we must perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. And to perfect those trainings in turn, I must have a good understanding, and I gain that understanding by being able to listen to a non-mistaken presentation. And so it is with this in mind that I am here this morning to listen to a talk on the graduated path to enlightenment teachings. So I'm saying, we just heard that Linda's mother has passed away, and so for her we'd, and for all sentient beings, we'd offer some Om Mani Padme Hum mantras, the mantra of compassion. So then please visualize, if you can, the figure of Avalokiteshvara, Chenrezig, with the four arms, as you can see here, to the right of the Buddha, and then with all the, his kind of the embodiment of all the Buddhas, and all the Buddhas are there, and then recite the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra. And also all around us are all kind mother sentient beings. And so that all kind mother sentient beings, of course, and visualize in some way that Linda's mother is there, and indeed representing all those countless beings who have passed away, and that as well as that, all the beings of the six realms of cyclic existence, that they may be completely freed from the suffering of their respective realms, and that they may meet with a precious human rebirth, and meet with a qualified Mahayana teacher, and be able to proceed along the paths and grounds to enlightenment as quickly as possible. And it is all for this purpose that we recite this mantra. Die schokt de Gyatang Jutamba die Yidak
Saba ingre. 딱 뭐도 비슷해 제베이나 딱 간자 지금 단다지 나라서 지가서다 단다데 람름 세겐데 아니 지가서다 간자 지 뭐도 두자 내 당보 아직 아니 지가서다 내 당보 아직 아니 지가서다 내 당보 아직 아니 배 지가서다 지금 지가서다 내 당보 아직 아니 내 당보 아직 되네 아니 지금 가서다 간자 지금 내 당보 아직 아니 되네 지금 가서다 산지게 사포도 줘야게 사주 람가 조당 중국이래 오다 된데 조당게 아마 차상와자 다 산지게 송 타예 봐줘래 산지게 송 타예 변에 간주 차저 간주 보디 자데 게츠 줘라 받아 다가니세 땡주 보디 니자 숨주십 주줘래 다 간자 되게 건강하게 아니 가서다 강사 직 아니 상계에 람거림바 아니 지금 초직도 딕샤네 보다 안 지금 남스 랑대고 수시게 즉 달람름스게 여러 람거림 봤어 어떻게 숨고 여러 어떻게 자
So then just a brief introduction to what is termed when we spoke about the in the motivation about the text the graduated path to enlightenment. So this is a very special sort of summarization of all the teachings of the Buddha into one sort of path or one book, and it's said that it allows for somebody who is a complete beginner to start with the graduated path, and and it will take them all the way to the state of enlightenment itself, and that to pass through what are known as the 10 grounds and the 5 paths that eventually reach enlightenment. And it really is quite remarkable in that when we talk about the teachings of the Buddha, that they are in fact quite limitless, that the Buddha taught for so long, so many different teachings. Even in the kind of Tibetan canon, we have 108 massive volumes that deal with just the words of the Buddha themselves, and then some 234 commentaries on those texts coming from the Indian tradition and in the Tibetan tradition as well. And so all of the main points of all those texts have been summarized in these graduated path teachings. And so they really are something quite remarkable, not just in that they are complete, but they are in this specific order which makes it easy to practice.
안 되게 지금 람름 근데 람거 좀 받대 지금 다 냠스 람거 좀 생각을 차고서 나라서 대화 되게 동해 믿어봐 차대요. 대화 되게 동해 믿어봐 차대 차 여봐 인사 아니 제가서 다 지금 차대 여봐 인사 다른 나라서 내 대화들 코아스기 요래. 코아스는 된 나로라 다 지금 정부 장사잖아. 다 지금 대화 지가서 천지 상황이 매되겠지. 좋아? 그디 나라도 대화 레샤 삼사때 갈리갈리 동행 걸 규定이지 가서 코랑신 코랑 코 유코라 나로라 아니 지금 가서 유 대외 유 다다 상계 배워 인사 아니 지금 동행 라실 규定이지 근데 이 맞았다 대화 차상하지 더 봐이나 차상하지 두 발라 아니 코와 되네지 마타 봐이나 아니 대화 차상 토베 지다 매되겠지 근데 아니 람거림 버디 개체 못 찾아한다는 뜻이었어.
And so one might ask the question, well, why, so what? If we have a graduated path to enlightenment like this kind of text, why bother to practice it? Why bother to study it? Well, the fact is that we have this fundamental situation of really wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. And really, at its core basis, this is what this text addresses. And we have to also admit that here, in the reality that we know, called cyclic existence, it's somehow always incomplete. Always there's some sense of unsatisfactoriness about a cyclic existence. And that because, whatever kind of happiness we experience, it eventually fades and even turns into suffering. And so if we want the correct happiness or perfect happiness, we have to have the perfect causes to bring that about. And it's really difficult in a reality which is defined as in the very nature of suffering itself. And so therefore, if we want complete happiness, we have to really strive to become liberated from this reality of cyclic existence. And therefore, that's the purpose of the graduated path teachings.
근데 이면서 상계 좀 되게 안에 가서도 유아를 나서를 최고 당부 거도 대바시 송송하와 대바시 송하지 대바시 송고에 좀 제가르스나 안에 나라도 대화 되고 요래 동에 되고 매바 인사 안에 대회 왔다 가서 대화 되고 요 동에 되고 매바자 당부 동에도 뭐신 거로 와 동에도 뭐 마신 바이나 안에 동에 교체니 상와지 니 두고 매봐서 동네 못해도 아니 동네 진짜 아니 상대 좀 되게 담보데 동네 시야발자 그래서 담보데 동네 대봐 아니 가서도 군주 대봐 고배 대봐 람 대봐 생각도 와 동네 대봐 쓰는 그래서 지나다 동네 뭐저 영라서 뭐저 동네 하고 요스가 요다 얘나야 단다그 상대 좀 되게 소에게 동네티 남주 뭐스 나라서 뭐스 동네래 또 sabti 말이야. 나라도 뭐지에 동네 시작을 sabti 말이야. 시작 sabti 말이야. 그래서 단다데 동네 다 동네다 동네 시바 동네 시고 그래서 주에 동네도 나라도 간가 시가 주주야 이제 시가 열봐. 다 되나 마딜레 또서 차바 가서 주에 동네에서 주에 동네에서 또 좀생 삼로 따나면 또 시작 하고 동 말이야. 다른 것도 잡을린 게 나라 잡을린 나라서 미 패쳐왔대. 다 교회 동네에 뭐저 대화세 있잖아. 아니 추진 24시 상마 되는 거 되게 다 뭐라서 뒤주 대 땅대고 열에. 디야 상계 좀 되지. 대화세니 봐 말이야. 디야 동네에 디 뭐라서 동네 가서 대화 증거 얻어야 되지. 교회 동네에서. 교회 동네에서 어디 다들 삼로 갈 간삼시 따는 것도 신경도 와. 어디는 다 대삼 세금 말했어. 가서 차바 되제가 동요. 그래서 동네에 풍부 양의 양도 내대 라와메 바라네 양도 내대 빵마도 디 동네에 뭐 마신 바이나 어저 동네 차상화 좀 거신 두고 말했어. 그래서 아니 근데서 동네 가서다 동네 대바 군주 대바서 그러와 대도 라이더 파베 동네 대바서 거려. 디 동네 군에대 파바 남기면도 킹이 매바 인사 킹이 매바 인사 파베 동네 대바서기도 와. What did it say?
So the historical Buddha Shakyamuni, he first turned the wheel of Dharma near Varanasi in India, and at that time the teaching he gave was known as the Four Arya Truths, and that this was specifically addressing the fact of our wanting happiness and not wanting suffering and going about it in the correct way. And so the Buddha's first task was in the Four Arya Truths to really point out what suffering was, and in order for us to truly recognize suffering and recognize the true depth of suffering. And then of course we had to recognize the causes that brought about that suffering. And so the first Arya Truth was known as true suffering, where the Buddha said, look, this is suffering. And that and then of course the second Arya truth was this is the cause of suffering, and the third, this is the path to, this is the cessation of suffering, and the fourth is that this is the path to that cessation of suffering, to that end of suffering, and these are known as the four Arya truths. Now the suffering that the Buddha spoke about is a great deal more subtle and more indeed pervasive than the suffering that we understand as suffering. And that he addressed that in the first, he talked about three categories of suffering in that first Arya truth. And the first of, when he talked about true suffering, he said, there is the suffering of suffering. And so this equates to what we would call, mental and physical pain. And this is a very basic level of suffering, and this is what is known by animals as well. We can see animals suffering in this way, just the same. So that's fair enough, but the Buddha went much deeper than that. He said also, he spoke about what he called the suffering of change. And so this, unfortunately, is where what we fail to understand. It's one of the biggest errors that human beings make, because in fact most human beings on the planet think this is happiness, and they strive 24/7 to try and create this happiness. But the Buddha said, no, I'm sorry, really, this isn't happiness. This is the suffering of change. It's just the very fact that whatever you experience of any kind of pleasing experience, it will transform into suffering. It will deteriorate. And so he said this is nothing more than a more subtle level of suffering. But it requires that sort of subtle thinking and reasoning in order to really understand suffering at that level. And then thirdly, he had the most subtle level of suffering. He called this pervasive suffering. And he said basically the very fact that we have this body and mind, and we're born into this world with what he called these aggregates, and that they are something that we appropriate just by the very fact of being born. He said that once you have that, you are inevitably going to suffering. There's no escaping that. And so basically until you stop the process of taking rebirth with these kinds of aggregates, there is no escape from suffering. And so what we need to do is to really get beyond that and to gain liberation from cyclic existence. And so these this was known as the first Arya truth. And the four Arya truths are named so because they are named after Arya beings, those who have really seen reality directly. And so it's kind of saying you need to meditate and to really work on these truths to get the full understanding, because this is the truth according to the point of view of these Arya beings. They're the four Arya truths. They're the truth from the point of view of those who have seen reality.
삼로땅거에 대외적으로 삼로땅거 요르면 또 동네적으로 삼로땅거 요 말이야. 그것도 가서데 가서 나중 가라서 랑체수 요래. 랑체수 요래. 다 랑체수 다디 여바디 여바 임바 인사 땅고서 개치주 가르쳐서 가리를 동네를샤. 띵고서 못해지. 가리 대화를샤. 아니 동네에 대화 쓰는데 다가서 가서도 주메게메다. 야나 미팅베 교소라. 되는 용어 봐. 릭투베 줄라 릭투베 제모 요한테겠지. 용되겠지. 근데 이 뭐서 뒤고서 못도 봐도 다시 우리 개치 못 차고 열어.
And so then really the first sort of point that we really need to get straight for ourselves, and that is because it's a very natural born fundamental desire to want happiness and not to desire suffering. And so we kind of, from that premise, from that point of view, we kind of examine that that particular desire and that particular aversion in more subtle detail, understanding that every move we make, every thought we think is in some way connected with moving towards happiness on the one hand or moving away from suffering on the other. And so we have to see that this is the very fundamental essence of who we are as beings. And therefore, it's really very important for us to take a much closer look and ask, what is then suffering? And what is then happiness? And to really see, okay, so is that suffering, does it arise from causes? Or is it something causeless? Is it like a chaos kind of theory? Or does it arise from specific causes and conditions that are in harmony with the cause and effect results, so that if I accumulate this specific cause, it will lead to this specific result? And this is the kind of analysis we need to engage in.
그래서 둘을 땡게 매봐 이나다 거뒤에 야나 동네 야나 대화 연구 되려면도 와 섬도 대화 연구도 섬도 대화 연구도 섬도 동네 연구도 섬도 연구도 때 가리 땡거 가서 그 둘을 땡거 봐 다 땡거 여 봐. 둘을 땡거 봐 다 땡거. 둘을 땡게 매봐 이나 거뒤에 연구고요. 그거 딱 받는 시 왔다. 거뒤에 연구고요. 왔다. 그 둘을 땡거 여. 다 둘을 땡거 여 봐 이나 다 주근에 땡거서 그 릭트베 주지가 땡 연구로 와. 릭트베 주지가 땡 연구요. 왔다 되고 다 어디서 딱 가서 말아서 미스게들 믹스에 캐줘 가서 미스게 남주 줘라. 다 남주 요한테 배주 땅에 다 못쳐 받지 되게 버려도 와.
And so that if happiness and suffering arose causelessly, without any cause whatsoever, then like there'd be a complete chaos kind of idea that, you could not predict one way or the other. But we know that we experience suffering sometimes, and that we know we have experiences of happiness at other times. And this is indicative of the fact that these feelings, these conditions arise from causes. They are not causeless. They arise from causes, and furthermore, they arise from specific causes that correspond with that kind of result. And that here in which we have the advantage of being human, and of having that the most distinguishing characteristic of being human is that intelligence, the ability to use our minds. And therefore it's very imperative that we use that intelligence to really recognize and gain conviction in that cause and effect theory.
아니 저기 뭐 여기 내주 통해라 누가 쳐도 주고 요래 누가 쳐도 주고 그래 다야 지금 가서 옹비 샤워를 하나 때문에 치마이나 뭐 여기 내주도 니 두고 말해.
And so here we must really learn to use our analytical mental faculty, and that to understand that just examining any issue based on our sense consciousnesses is not really enough. We're not going to get underneath or deep enough to be able to gain conviction and certainty. So here we need to use our mental faculty specifically to adopt reasoning. The process of reasoning will get us deeper into the subject that we are focused on, and that we have like more potential to gain conviction in any results that we might gain from that analysis.
동해 모쳐도 동해 교대 잡아두지 동거 숨쉬어도 다 되네 디나는 작작슈 잡아대 잡아두지 그 동해 되네 잡아두지 그 동해 마방에 봐도 거기 여봐 이나야 나라서 문에 전에 기부지 용해 매버다 용해 매버 지다 레상보사네 미르델레 요래 미르델레 바는 것도 동해 여봐 것도 신기도 와다 대사 말에 되네 땅에서 미르겐데 디 감솜나네 가리콘 돼서 되감색도 콘 되어 다 되감라야 아니 저거 되배 감들라야 년조다 대조스 연구 요래 뭐저데 대조래 다 년조들라 냐와 이다 된조들가 년조스 그래 다 가라조 된조 되감 된조 다 된조래 아니 미다 하마이다 하스 연구를 와 하스 연구를 왔다 왔다 저 된조 지다 다 지다 셈제라 지바이나 다 가자 도와리 조스도 년조숨 된조숨 쓰게 dendu sumche ta dendu sumche ta ngara zode dendu khon na ne karesana ngozo dönkam khon dendu tre roata dönkam dela kasa ngendu sumche an daga ne mi che hama ye che an debel ha che wa ta kanje du yong de ge ta ngara zo de ba as che o de se
And so this was then the presentation by the Buddha, who said this is suffering, this is true suffering. So it's important for us to use that reasoning faculty as human beings to examine what the Buddha has said in that first Arya truth, and to really get a good handle on what suffering is: the suffering of change, pervasive suffering. And so the second of the Arya truths that the Buddha spoke about then was that there is a cause of suffering. And so he laid this out very, very clearly as well. But again, looking at the different sufferings, he pointed out that, the third suffering of pervasive is the most subtle and also the most intractable. And so whenever, the very fact of us being in this world with these what are known as contaminated aggregates of body and mind, we are always prone to suffering. We can experience suffering at any time because of that. And even though we, it's to have had to take a rebirth as a human being and to have this human body, it must have been the result of virtuous karma. Virtuous causes, the causes that correspond with this result, and that because a human rebirth is known as a fortunate rebirth. It's a good result, and that here Buddhism speaks about the three realms of existence, and that here we are in what's known as the desire realm. And in the desire realm, there are kind of 6 possibilities of rebirth, and 3 of which are known as lower rebirths, and 3 are these fortunate rebirths. And so the lower rebirths are reborn in various hells, or in the world of hungry spirits, or in the animal realms. And then the 3 fortunate realms are to be born as a human being, to be born as an asura being, and to be born as a celestial being in the desire realm. And so here this is known as the desire realm, and it's split into these 6 different possibilities.
What did I say about what? Inaya, better Narazo Millicare, Narazo Dendro de Dunga Yungu. And Hala, Debel Halaya, Dunga, Hamaile Dunga Yungu. Chedal Hakranke, Mizil da Junga Marte, Inaya Hala. Lakra donga lagal chides and Japan yore. Chides upon to any donga badum of your teach. Rangulula and then Casa de Kenja because of Medoga Tower to Yam to your Timakagu, your Rangi Dandela, Dini to your mare, Namu Rango Robot to get to Korku, your Maracasana, has the Tamashi by Yenza, and Hachide Port and Gatelano, Timozo, which Kagu, that is Tulu Korochi, your mare. Takaja, Dilet and a son of Donga badum of your ticket. You take it to attack you take it. What I tell you. What how my letter didn't say quite a quarter of Mark to Japan, can I check to get you? That is to get part of my you there. And the Taganisha, that and then a Sungabella, Sungabella, yeah, and the Deva Shiratagare, Casna, because of Deven your mola, Gyo to Deven your mola Chaxam your Maria. And Dilatin something wish you come to Toku, she never handled ten Toku, she never handled ten Toku. And the so many articles. And Chidan Neta Musicorana Kang, Neta, which I your day in a anti Namshina, Lude, Casadeta, 가서라 다 간자제 잡아 두제게 동에게 잡대봐 인자 야 레그 페퍼 저도 야 말홍 거. 야 말홍 거. 근데 강에 유되게 다 간자 타마들라사 가서 녀랭그 풍부 라와 매바자네 아니 레뉴기 시와지게 녀랭그 풍부게 아니 녀랭그 풍부디 아니 지금 도로 마도가 봐도 모토네 아니 동엔 나서봐지 용대지 그러다 또 시즌에 원남에게 바게 동엔 나서봐지 용대지 차되게 도와
So we speak about these fortunate rebirths in the desire realm, and that human being is one of them. But of course, we can all agree that it's not all happiness in being a human being. There's also suffering in the human realm. Not only that, but there's suffering as well in the other so-called fortunate realms. In the Asura realm, there's a lot of jealousy, which leads to a lot of conflict, wars, and so on. And then in the celestial beings, in the desire realm, even though during their lifetime they experience every kind of exquisite sensual pleasure, but when they see their coming death, and they have that clairvoyance to see that, they experience excruciating mental suffering, because they experience like the 5 signs of impending death, which include the fact that they have the flower garlands that they always wore and that they were always perfect. Now, for the very first time, they fade and they dry up. For the very first time, their body sweats, and so they start to smell. They start to have an odor. They have no desire to sit on their high seats, their beautiful cushions. They also then are slowly but inexorably abandoned by their companions, because they have companions still very much alive in the celestial realms of such high standards of excellence and cleanliness and so on, that they cannot stand to be near somebody who has even the slightest bit of their clothing being soiled, or their body producing sweat and odor and stuff like that. So they experience this terrible isolation and terrible loneliness and so on. And that it's really saying that even though the physical suffering isn't that apparent in the celestial realms, the mental suffering is some of the greatest mental suffering of all that can be experienced in the desire realm. And so this is the case even with the so-called fortunate rebirths in the desire realm. So we spoke about 3 realms. Above the desire realm there is what's called the form realm. And here the situation seems a great deal better than even in the desire realm, because those who are reborn in the form realm no longer have a coarse desire. They don't have that attachment to things, and that really keeps their mind very peaceful. Plus, they're extremely dedicated to developing meditative concentration, such as mental quiescence and special insight. And that so they do a great deal of this meditation. However, they are never beyond the most subtle form of suffering, that is the 3rd category of pervasive suffering, which simply means that they are only in this realm based on karmas that they have accumulated. And once the karmas run out, then they will inevitably fall to a lower realm, because they have used up their positive merit in that form realm. And so this is a very, very important point, that as long as we have these appropriated aggregates of these 5 aggregates, we can never get beyond suffering. It's always going to get us in the end. And so whether we are born and we have to experience every possibility within cyclic existence, from what's known as the very peak of cyclic existence down to the very lowest hell, called the hell without respite.
ngaranzo 这个점점这个최대야고这个최대야고 맞잖아 나그리에서 먼저 시작이요라. 근데 같이 시작을 루버디 그래서 동네가 풍부 인바 인사 사제 녀발렘 풍부 인사 다디 인데 아니 거기 교계 상황도 나오고도 아니 괜찮 나봐도 루버디 매네 괜찮 나요 말이에요. 그 루버디 된데 그 루버디 아니 사제 녀발렘 풍부 인바 인사 아니 그 동네가 그 뇌차되기도 와.
And so this is we spend a great deal of time looking after our good health, because we know that if we don't do that, we'll get sick. And so this is very indicative of the fact that the body that we have is something that is kind of contaminated. These are contaminated aggregates, and that they are always prone to diseases like cancer and so on. And we would never experience cancer if we didn't have this kind of body, this kind of impure, contaminated body. And so this is something that we need to get beyond.
다디네 이마자 디가서나 덴데디 코 주이 짜와디 다 주 다긴들라이드라 다베나 가르자르서 베나자 동에게 주들라 동에 주들라 다 가자 군주들라 레게 군주다 녀몽부 군주스니 용이요래 다 레게 군주데 랑게 레니 바사에네 아니 게다 체원데 동에 녀되기도 와 아니 녀몽의 군주스다 되자시다 콘주숨 다디 짜와디 가르져서는 단지 머리 바스게 용되기요 다 되네 예자 단지 머리 바빵 마투게 바도 아니 녀모도 숨 깨고래 녀모도 숨 깨원바이나 될라데네 레상고래 레사소나 남색도 바자샤고래 남자들도 바자샤와이나 아니 실렌스바 숨고 쇠따본 거래 쇠따베 좀 그래 아니 될라데네 아니 깨와래 좀 그래 아니 될라데네 다 깨와네 저 가와 나와 치외 동가 봐도 간가 용되게래 용되기도 와 다 치외 동가데 되고 뭐도나 세바 실렌스바 숨 치외 동가도 보나 깨와데 까고 요래 레뉴옹이 깨와데 레뉴옹이 깨와데 까투와 이나 이게 까고 디까발라 레뉴옹이 깨와데 레가 실렌스바 숨데 까고 요래 디까발라 그래서데 남체도 바자샤와 까고 바자샤와 까발라 레사야 까고 레사야 까발라 아니 그래서데 녀모도 숨데 까고 녀모도자 단지 머리바다 다 단지 머리바 까바도 봐도 매버서 마도 같다 못을 동에 용되겠다 싸워데 단지 머리바 차대도 봐
So then the Buddha, having outlined the varied subtleties of suffering in the first Arya truth, then he addressed the cause of that suffering in the second Arya truth. And he said, he called this the true source of suffering. And he outlined two main sources. One was karma itself. The very fact of the karmas that we have created as causes, they will eventually ripen as results, and we'll have to experience that result, that because it corresponds with that cause. And the second source was mental affliction. And here he outlined three main mental afflictions known as attachment, aversion, and ignorance. And of the three, the far more serious one was ignorance. And this was really, what he addressed as the mental grasping at a self-entity, and that this was the root cause of the whole of cyclic existence. And that this is so important that because, from the basis of this error of misapprehension of the existence of a self-entity, that we then have this self and other. We have this separation, and that from that arises, attachment and aversion and so on, all the other mental afflictions. And because then we have motivated by that, they lay down karmas as imprints on our mind stream, and they stay on our mind stream until they then are activated by craving and grasping near the time of our death. And this propels us into another life where we take birth again. And as soon as, of course, as we're born again into this kind of reality, that we set ourselves up for all the suffering that comes after that, old age, sickness, and death once again. And so here he really saying, if you really don't want the death, if you do not want the suffering of death, you have to stop birth. You have to look at it from that point of view, to stop being born with this set of aggregates dominated, operating based on karma and the mental afflictions, the sources of suffering. And it says if you're able to do that, if you stop that process of being born, then you have to look at what propels us into that birth, which was the craving and grasping, and how that is activated is because they are as imprints on our mind stream, laid down by karmas which are motivated by attachment, aversion, and especially the root cause of this ignorance known as the grasping at the true existence of a self entity. And so it always comes back to that ignorance, that specific ignorance of grasping at the true existence of a self entity. And the Buddha outlined this as the root cause of cyclic existence, the root cause of suffering. And so if we want to stop the process, we have to cut through, we have to eradicate this root cause.
What did it? What that didn't because of that Dunga di and the Pambane. Pam Dunga didn't that Dunga Gazawa, Danzi Maribas in the Pawayina. Pawayina, Danzi Maribas in the Pam Tuayina. And that wouldn't have she wanted to go, Kobe about the Tabu. And what that then they go back about Tobala Carsona, Lamden Comco Yoreta. Lamden. The Lamden because the day Danzi Maribati, because of the Danzi Maribati, and a church now I buy in there, we then do now at the thing, and they let in a Chaka locking with you. That is, you may use that and they Danzi Maribati. Koran, you're there, you know, call lot two by the Koran, you did. That you didn't do what you never did, you didn't do it now at the change and Chaka lost game with your game. That the Nimbo, Tameto, sheriff's that you didn't Matuba Yinza, Matuba Yimbanza, Matuba the Tobe Lodge, the La Tameto sheriff's. That Tameto sheriff Rangula Nam, then by Yimbaina, and it Tameto sheriff was from the Rangula Rangu, that Tameto sheriff was from the Tobayina. Tobayina, Dilatene, and Tatu to be lot of kid to a court. Couldn't Mongare. Chick, you're a chick net to your money. And the Tameto Beshara Rangula came on to, and Tatu to what's a lot of net to your money. That did come, and New Chester was of the Tony. Was of the Tony, and you call that because that didn't less Sawati, Tameto Beshara on the less Sawati, some make less. That some make a lady less Sawati, and Diggy go to the Maracha your money. Digi tempoter. Dana Garazo Digi Yotavate Digi Garazo Digi dear tempo mate the cousin, Saje lay by Insan. Could she did dancing Maribe couldn't allow him by Insan, quite Saje lay chagator. That Tameto Beshara couldn't allow him by Samele. Delatene Kevaina, give a Dungayo your money, quite Sabeg lay chatting with water. Tinanga chatting one. That when the game was a bad never chat or didn't never chat against a matter. That was a gay, such a leg on give your butter, some leg only give in and do my watch. Can I tell you about what did it?
So then to abandon suffering. How do we go about abandoning or getting rid of suffering completely? We do that by really getting rid of the root cause of that suffering, as has just been pointed out, and that is this ignorance which really conceives of the true existence of a self entity. And so this is the the problem with that is that we have this idea that the way things appear is true, and then we grasp onto, we kind of apprehend that with our mind, that appearance as being the real thing, as being true, and so that is a mistake. And so from that, then everything that follows on from that is a mistake. And so we need to be able to correct that mistake right at the very outset, and we need then to really develop, what is known as the antidote to that attitude, to that mistake, and that is known as the wisdom of selflessness, that really directly oppose the ignorance of self-grasping. And so this is, again, following on in the Buddha's first turning of the wheel, the first teaching. He looked into the 4 Arya truths, pointing out true suffering, then second, true source or cause, and then looking into the third, true cessation. And so this is what is meant by true cessation, the really uprooting of that ignorance, that cause, really attaining the state of liberation. And the fourth then was the path that you had to follow in order to attain that true cessation. And so this path was really developing that mind, that wisdom of selflessness, and getting to that point. And so here, that to develop that, we have to really habituate to that mind, to have to get to the point of what's known as that direct realization, where you really see directly what that truth is, and that uproots the mistake, that overcomes the mistake, and that because these two attitudes of mind, of one of the ignorance of self-grasping, and the other the wisdom of selflessness, are diametrically opposed insofar as if one is present, the other has to be necessarily gone, absent. And so this is the key. If you have habituate again and again to the wisdom of selflessness, you will reach that point where you directly realize that truth, and that really eradicates that ignorance of self-grasping. And that this is it's such a key point, because following on from that, if you have gained that direct realization of selflessness, you will still accumulate karma, but there's a key difference now, that the karma you now accumulate is known as uncontaminated karma, and therefore if the happiness that you experience subsequently will not deteriorate, will not disappear. So this is totally different to the karma that we accumulate now. Even the good karmas, the virtuous karmas that we create now, are known as contaminated karmas. So it's not just the negativities, but even the virtues that we accumulate are contaminated karmas. Why? Because we're still operating. Our motivation is contaminated by that mistake of grasping at the true existence of a self-entity. So everything is informed by that mistake, and so that's why even the happiness that we experience deteriorates and disappears and doesn't last for us. So that's a very, very key point.
Today is a Jeda Zabalin and Nala Jumda you Chulu Pimis Mamboy, Tomba Pita what the Mambo stop here, Chulukan Chulu Tati Jumda you Chulukan, Tomba to the Pimis Pita with Yabuta Yore. Labja to the Hansai, Jabba the Nigella Sobata, Susan Gieta. What the Hansai? Here that Sunday Jumden the Karikaba Yogurt, that Kaba the Network. Kasana Marazo Mudu, Dunga Zawati, Kabatugu Ota, dancing Marikwala Tugu. Di 마방에 봐도 동네 빵 두고 민도 아니 디빵 두고를 봐서 빵 두고도 가서 단지 말이 바꾸라 로 투바리샤 거의 랑유를 친지로도 쇼대샤 랑게 류 다도 마도 버리데 코란 다도 주고 진데기도 안데 투바리샤 데 투바인도 코란 투바 이바 인사 코 마투바 또 벨로지 때데 용거래 아니 디 이바 인사 아니 코 투바데 세 두고도 안데서 코아데 매버서 두고도 코아네 다 두고 도스 아니 다 네냐 뭐되는 다음에 또 배시라 고고도 와다때 뭐한테 그다 상계 좀 되대 약질해
And so that we have many great spiritual traditions on the planet that have been around a long time, and they really have wonderful tenets, wonderful advice, wonderful teachings on compassion, love, patience, etc., etc. And that's but here we're pointing out something that distinguishes the Buddhist teachings, or the Buddha's teachings. And so this particular point of saying, look, the root cause of suffering is this mistaken ignorance of apprehending a self to exist truly, to exist from its own side. And that this is really where all the suffering comes from. And that until you overcome that, abandon that mistake, there can't be any abandoning of suffering. You are always going to have suffering. And the Buddha said, so is there anything I can do about this? The Buddha said, yes, you can develop the mind that is diametrically opposed to that mind, the antidote to that, direct antidote to that, and that is the wisdom of selflessness. And that's when you apply that unmistaken wisdom of selflessness to a mistaken attitude of grasping at the true existence of a self, then you can overcome that mistake. You can really correct that mistake. And that means you can attain liberation from suffering completely. And so that's really something which is quite unique to the Buddha's teachings.
다 유대는 두바지 샤 요바 시샤 제바이나 아니 단지 머리발은 내 두고 요 말이야. 단지 머리발은 내 마도가 이나 아니 코안에 다 두고 요 말다. 도당 거부 샤바이나 도당 거부 샤바이나 개와 야볼래 다 디기 주 갈아가서 코에 디기다 두고 그래. 얘는 코안에 다 두고 했다. 그 줄에 된 거 있어. 직접에 줄에 된 거 있어. 그 타투에 매기 차고도 한다. 다디에서 상계 좀 되는 거 추기 캐주로 되는 차 그래.
And so really from the point of view of the philosophical view, apart from Buddhism, the other spiritual traditions at some level, at some way, they assert the objective existence of phenomena, the true existence of phenomena, and that means of a self as well. And so because they say if I can't establish the objective existence of a self, that means I conclude that therefore there's no self at all. There's no this kind of things go out of existence. And so they say that therefore I have to assert some sense of an objective reality, objective existence of a self, and that it's too kind of like impossible not to do that. And so that means that if you on the one hand assert the objective existence of a self, and on the other hand you try to develop a wisdom of selflessness, that wisdom, it can't counteract that previous assertion. You cannot have it cannot really operate, can't contradict that assertion. And so therefore there is no eradication of the root of suffering. There's no uprooting of that ignorance of self-grasping, and therefore there's no liberation from a cyclic existence in that tradition. Yes, there can be the teachings that talk about cultivating happiness, but it's the happiness of cyclic existence, is that old contaminated happiness again, and that's about as far as it goes.
다 개와 그래서 다 심바 속에 유대는 맞추고는 매두고도 삼사 난 낭배기 학도도 엄마 단교배기 유대는 맞추고 임바 인사 고 때내 주고도 와서 때내 주고도 매도 조사면도 땡내지 두고 요나 거 유대는 두당 거라 요 말이야. 가서나 유대는 두고 땡고 좀새 요 말. 거 땡뒤 거 유대는 두마도 다 땡고 요래. 다 땡고 요. 근데 인사 유대는 마주바 땡고 인사 거 매배 돼 말이야. 유대는 마주바 인사 다고 용단에 땡의 주바면도 용단면 두스. 땡의 주바 이만은 유대는 두당 거라 민두스. 거 직도 찍어 손에. 아니 들라 때는 아니 지금서다 뭐 여기 내서 통통해 준 거요래.
And so then the problem then of the fear that if one rejects or refutes the true existence of a self, that therefore means that it becomes non-existent. That's the problem with other traditions. But within the Buddhist tradition, at least within what's known as the consequentialist viewpoint, they assert that because phenomena lack any true or objective existence, that means that they arise independence. And this is a very, very key issue. It's rather than concluding that they therefore become non-existent, they say no, it's not that they become non-existent. It actually shows, because they lack any objective, true, independent existence, it means that they must arise in dependence. They must arise on the basis of cause and conditions, etc. And so this is the way in which they work the meditation, going back and forth like this. Because phenomena have this arise independence, the conclusion is they can't be independent. They can't be objective. They can't exist out there on their own. They arise independent, and it goes back and forth like that. One informs the other. And they say this is the way to get to the actuality. This is the way to get to reality.
배나 차샤버이나 부구 충종 거라 부구 충조의 라완의 두바이나 부구 충조의 친구 차이 매버 차도 그래. 아니 부구 충조의 아니 거뒤에 요와 차도 그래. 안고 부구 계속 라야 요 말이야. 그래서 아니 부구 충조 가야 마신 게지 아니 되네 봐 친구 차 되네 갈간점 차 되네 KG 스쿨 되네 랍다 아니 되네 유니버시티 야 되는 거 매버 차도 그래. 그래서 그 라완의 두바는 거 요다 요 말이야. 다 라완의 마두바 인자 때내 중앙 인바 인자 아니 부구 충조대 아니 친구 차이요래. 경고가 차이요래. 아니 롭종 친구 가야 마신 것도 롭종 캐바 친구 차이요래. BS자 되는 캐바 친구 차이요래. 어디 갔다 된 거서 코 라완의 마두바 때내 중앙 인자 교화다 해도가. 되네 인바자 라완의 마두바 인바자 뭐서 삽삽 마시나 동해 용 그래. 동해 교상나. 야구 제와이나 디기 용 그래. 아니 야구 제와이나 디기네 때 땐도 디기 톱에 유튜브 그래. 그 때내 중앙 인바 인상 아니 교대 낀거 쥐어서 차대 그러와.
And so in a world where, people, if the world existed as it was asserted that things lacked any, phenomena were independent, or that were objectively existent, truly existent in that sense, then we take something like a child. A child in that reality could never grow up. There couldn't be any development whatsoever. And that the child starting out knowing nothing, and then no matter what schooling they had, they would still end up knowing nothing. Because in the world of the objectively existent, the truly existent, there is no such thing as change. It can't be changed because there's no dependence. You're supposed to be independent, singular. That's it. You're completely isolated. There's no dependent relation to anything else. And so that completely really disqualifies the reality, doesn't it, as we understand it. And that, when we look at it, that, a child who is, properly nourished will certainly grow up and grow old. A child who goes to school and studies well will end up eventually with a PhD. And so these results are possible because the reality is that things operate independent on other things, and that this really confirms the fact that they can't exist objectively or independently. And this also, of course, affirms the very law of cause and effect, that this cause will lead to this result, that they have this kind of correspondence or this harmonious relationship. This kind of cause will eventually lead to this kind of ripening result. And so it kind of confirms the process of cause and condition.
어디서 왔다데 남백에 다 가서데 따와 대자 남백에 쥐바 차와 매봐 따와 된중식 요와 쥐바 차와 매봐 따와 된중제 어디서.
So that this is the Buddhist view, and that in very brief it says in terms of behavior, the Buddhist attitude is no harm, don't create any harm. In terms of view, the view is that of interdependence.
맞아. 다가네 생 다가네 중나 팬토 딜라 대바치 비치듯이야. 팬토 도구만데 뇌마게 아니 뇌대 대바치야. 되고도.
And then it says within the Buddhist categorizations, then you talk about the Mahayana view of behavior is starting with, if possible, benefit others. If not possible to benefit, don't harm. And so this is the kind of the individual liberation vehicle point of view, don't harm. And then the Mahayana view takes a more proactive view. First, benefit, if at all possible, but if you can't, certainly don't harm.
어저 뇌마게 쓰지. 아니 따와데 된중제. 다 된중이 뭐 인자 아니 나라도 디기 되고 열에 동에 되고 요마서 아니 디기 유튜브에 동에 주세 곧 된중 들었대 따와 된중 들었대는 그 배송제 중세도.
And so then the view is the same of interdependence, arising independence. And this goes back to what we very first described, the very fact of the desire to want happiness and to avoid suffering. So it confirms that if you want happiness, then you can create the causes of happiness, because that's the interdependence of the whole process of creating the right causes will lead to the right results of happiness, and abandoning the causes of suffering to avoid having to experience suffering. This makes it all viable because things are interdependent, and so it really makes it again confirms the fact that it's worthwhile making effort at the path.
단 이들이야 저 출루 민자와 망고 시우지요래 출루 민자와 망고 시우지자 가시 야가 가시 두가 되게 그 말에 소소소소라 가리 캄 퉁고이나 디약슈 소소를 디약슈래 그러 출루도 약슈래 라이크가 요 말에 그래서 소소소소 캄도 그래서 나라서 저거 샘제 캄다 매바 삼바 발내와 나초바 줘봐 인사 아니 안 들었대네 아니 출루야 민자와 나초바 고고요래 따와 민자와 나초바 고고요래.
And so when we talk about different spiritual traditions in this way, it's not in any way to rate one spiritual tradition as being better than another. This is not the point here at all, because actually it's very important that there are a variety of spiritual traditions to cater for the variety of sentient beings, and that one should follow the spiritual tradition with which one has an affinity. If one feels that this is the system for me, then that's the best. You should try and follow that. And because people have different dispositions, people have different personalities, etc., that it's very, very important that we have a variety of spiritual traditions with a variety of different views.
다가리 이제 배나 상계 좀 되게 나베게 최 나로라야 아니 그 좀더 미터 뭐 부셔 되고 요래 중담하고 가서나 산제 공개 가르송도 요바트 계자마 뒤제라 펜바 송고여서 뒤제 칸 미자 망부 요바서 산제가 송래 미자 망부 쇼한테요 되네 이제 산제가 송래 장게 예와 체고에 되네 체고 요래.
And so this is this is no different than the Buddha himself and the way that he taught, because he didn't come out with saying I'm teaching just this dogma that I have come up with. He taught according to the people that he met on his travels, and that the particular dispositions of the disciples, what they were able to handle, what they could understand. This is how he taught. And so in Buddhism itself, there are many different tenet views. And so here this is understood. And so there's a kind of an interpretative teachings of the Buddha.
I
don't know if that's beneficial to you or not.
What did I say? What 좀 된줄라 때, 다 내단 된줄라 때는 오가 아니 그 람림 쓰기도 연구도 로다 람림 냠레데 오다 지금 가서 가라서 다 되게 가서 다 같이 냠레 지다리 봐도 다 되게 나다 저와 차되게 도와 저다 가서는 가서 다다 저 대바시기다 거기에 리벨 람네 telapano 다 좀 타이어 거나 삼로다네 아니 지금 람림 냠레도 다 tel파고 거와.
And so then, in brief, that's just kind of like one angle on why it's good to study and to practice according to this graduated path set of teachings that we looked into from the very beginning, and that we really base it around the four Arya truths, that first turning of the wheel by Shakyamuni Buddha, and following that path of reasoning that he set out, and this is the way it's presented in this graduated in kind of stages form.
그래. 딱 지금 말아줘 채찍만도 캐말래나 아니 그저께 또 가고 싶어 찾아오래. 미지직만도 캐말래 그 리치 온 되거든. 다들라 다 기대도 좀 시작 요 말이야. 좀 시작 요 말. 이내다 미지직만도 매번 지금 가서다 지금 가서도 겨왕아마 여봐 치마 여봐 되게 오늘 전에 리벨 남나 삼로 야고 당기나 말아서 겨왕아마 통과면도 돼오 여봐데 못해야 되겠지. 기와 치마 통과면도 돼 얘네 리벨 남나 삼로다나 못해야 되겠지. 차대 그래.
And so this kind of talk, this sort of path, really, it's really hard to accept if one is stuck with the one life theory, only accepting that we have this one life on the planet. But if we accept that there have been previous lives and there will be future lives, then when we use the path of reasoning, we can really, even though we don't see our past lives, we can't see our future lives, that we, on the basis of the reasoning, we can kind of make a fair assumption that this is possibly the case.
그래. 안 다가는 시 담불린 나라 들이가서 부구 충주 나라 개왕가마 땡게 뭐 용 되게 도와.
And indeed, there are multiple examples of small children who apparently recall and remember their previous life or lives.
다 부구 들줄 개왕가마 여와 얘는 어줄 개왕가마 매배 좀 세요 말이야.
And so, if small children like that, have reliable accounts of the previous lives, then we can't very well say that previous lives don't exist.
아니 다가는 생게 배나 파마찌게 부구 임바 이내야. 아니 경다 집어 지장 지거는 부구 소수게 아니 지가서도 검시다 시간민자와 용태 도나지다 민자와 용태 중고도 특경함에 마샤게 개발된데 요 그래.
Likewise, and another example is that when you have several children of the same parents who have very different personalities, that they have very different habits, they pay attention to very different things, and that this really, because they're in the same environment, but yet they're developing in very different ways, shows that they are operating under the basis of imprints on their mind stream that they have accumulated in previous lives. This is another evidence for previous lives.
다 지단에다 지금 대지를 안 다가네 생각하고 가서도 지금 가라고 류다 샘스가 니요레스 다 류스가 거 지금 감독잖아 밤에 쿠단조 샘데 밤에 쿠단조에 샤도고 말해 가서나 샘데 거 세션 리바스는 거 숙제용 거 말이야 숙제용 거 매도 그年龄 있다 뭐 근데 제가 콜年龄 교다 현지적인 교수님 연구요래 현지적인 들라다 거지 숙제용 거 샤초고 때年龄 교다 녀바도 릭투바치 고요래 근데 이마이자 아니 셰베 교다 베나 단다게 다라 쇼게 셰바들 야야도나 아메 코바나 디 야도와이나 겨왕가마게 들라 마샤나 디시 디年龄 좀 매바쳐래 야나네 그디 年龄 교도 숙제 샤고 지그래 다디 진짜 리바드 개와래 아니 데데제 아니 디인가마 저는 가면 매바 야 샤투고 말 야야 저는 코아토만 매바스는데 땐데 아니 녀바니에 되겠지 아니 개와 치마다 셰바스는데 콜 개기요 말 개기 매바도 코 못도 줘대그래 다 데네 이마 인자 아니 코 데네 이마 인자 코 못는 내대지 안 데네 인자다 다른 알아도 샘제 탐제기라 산제 링이 요래했으면다 타마 지금 소속이 지금 가서다 지금 대긴 라면 단지 머리 바디 아니 뭐트네 아니 디반 담에 또 셔랍고 아니 잠니 장주 섬라서 건데 아니 산제 고마 톱두고 요래 타마데 소소 셰베 균데 산제기 셰바 차도에 되겠지 어떤 뭐 주된 그 매우 전 차고요 말와 어떤 저도에 요겠지 어떤 좀제로 섬로다나 어디서 섬로다네 아니 다에 어디서 그 年龄 교카나 섬로다나
And so we have a body and we have a mind, and that here we can talk about the main causes, and that when we talk about cause for anything, there's what's known as the substantial cause and the cooperative conditions. They combine, and so we talk about the substantial cause of the body being the sperm and ovum of a father and mother coming together. And so from that then develops the fetus, develops the body, the physical side. But we have mind as well. And when we look into what are the substantial cause and the cooperative conditions of mind, we have a problem, because we can't say that the sperm and the ovum of a father and mother act as the substantial cause for mind, because sperm and ovum are matter, and the mind is not matter. It's immaterial. It's not something physical. So something physical can't act as a cause for something that is not physical, and so we have an issue then. We have to seek elsewhere as to what is the substantial cause for mind. The cooperative conditions we can talk about as the body itself as being kind of something that houses the mind, but the actual substantial cause. And so here it's established that the substantial cause for a moment of mind, of consciousness, is the previous moment of that consciousness. And so that sort of acts as the actual cause for this one, and this one acts as the cause for the subsequent moment of consciousness. But if we go backwards then, follow that logic, so each moment of consciousness has a previous moment of consciousness as its substantial cause, and we go back to the consciousness of this morning like that, and we can go through then yesterday. We can actually keep going back until we're in our mother's womb. And if we talk about the very first moment then of consciousness in our mother's womb, it must have had a previous moment of consciousness for its substantial cause. And that takes us back into the previous life. And so this is one of the logical reasonings to establish previous life. And indeed, not only that, but because that's the nature of consciousness, then you can go back not just to one life, but to countless lives, since what's known as beginningless time. And likewise, going forward, we have the quality of consciousness going forward into future lives, because it said that there is nothing to obstruct the continuance of consciousness. There's nothing to stop it, to cut it, to break it. That consciousness will continue on long after we shed this house of a body. And so there shows that this kind of like the continuance of a mind stream, of a consciousness. And this is very, very important, that if we were to say that, that the first moment of consciousness in my mom's womb happened, just suddenly, happened causelessly, that would contravene reason. That would be illogical. And so we say that yes, it had its first moment, and that was a previous moment of, had its cause, and that was a previous moment of consciousness. So it's very important to have that sort of conviction, and that in that context, then we can talk about what's known as Buddha potential, and that means that every living being has what's known as Buddha potential, the potential to attain the state of enlightenment, to become a Buddha. And that especially if we overcome the ignorance of the grasping at the true existence of a self-entity, and that means establishing the wisdom of selflessness and combining that with what is known as the mind of enlightenment, or bodhicitta, that we can actually attain that state of enlightenment where we actually have a Buddha's consciousness.
아니 되네 치마에 내봐도 요초야지 요초야지 왔더니 되네도 다 되네 이번에서 다 가잖아 다 가르쳐다 다디 다들 남름게 냠내 제거에 다 퇴삼 공소 제거에 개침부 차단 되러 왔다 개침부 차단돼 왔다 가자 지금 뒤전에 가서 다다데 다 되게 겨왕같이 지야 요바체 되네 겨왕게 그래서 말도 다 원들이 다 들이 요다도 다 들이 깨차도 타마다 치워 녀차라 아니 깨차도 치워 용되거든 치워 용되거든 다 치워서 매는 주고 요 말다 되긴 셰베 균도 못 들어서 매도 깨와서 깨와들다 레상에 온게 깨와상에 실련되고 요래 레되고 요래다 레상에 오게 야네 대로 야네 게로 게되거든 어디래
And so this then it really behoves us to reflect on these kinds of reasonings and this kind of logic, especially in the context of establishing previous lives and that and indeed future lives as well, and that to really kind of reach a point where you go, well, this, yes, based on the logic, based on these reasons and this reasoning, it seems plausible that there has been past lives and there are going to be future lives. This seems the most likely scenario, and so with that in mind, and then it becomes ever more kind of like logical that one would adopt a path like the graduated path to enlightenment, and adopt the process of assimilating all of that, learning through what's called the wisdom arising from learning, the wisdom arising from contemplation, and ultimately the wisdom arising from meditation. And that understanding that, when I am born, that death is the only absolutely definite thing that I can count on. Everything else is really, up for grabs, but death is for sure. And after death, I simply don't go out of existence, but I will have to follow my karma and take another rebirth. And that may be a fortunate rebirth, that may be a lower rebirth, and that I need to be able to ensure that it is the former and not the latter by practicing the graduated path.
근데 이면서 지원 예바 인바 아니 가르쳐서 아니 최초가 타제고래스 남친 예배 인바 최 단단한 조가 타제고래스 아니 최에서 최마도 간야 미배바 인자 아니 다 지제 최소 조와지 타제고래스
So in the actual subject of death, which is part of the graduated path, there are three different points made about death. One is that death is definite, and after meditating on that, we should conclude that okay, I really need to begin practicing spiritual path because death is definite. The second point about death is that even though death is definite, the time of death is indefinite. We don't know when we're going to die. And so the conclusion from meditating on that is that, oh my goodness, I don't have to just practice now, practice Dharma, but I have to get into it right now. I can't wait. I can't waste any more time. I can't procrastinate anymore. And the third point about death that we meditate on is that at the time of death, only our spiritual practice will be of any good to us. And that means the conclusion is that, oh, therefore, I need to really put everything else aside and just practice spiritual path.
이것은 미류된 되게 수에 중앙 때가서 남주의 시행다 미로 다 남주의 아니 다 가서 다 지금 배주 비다고 당두고 요래 비다고 당두고 요래 어디죠.
And so then this is said too that like having then taken on this human life now, this opportunity that comes with being a human being, having that intelligence, and this is saying if one adopts that attitude to life, like based on these three conclusions, that it is one of the best ways of using that intelligence, that human intelligence. So let's leave it at that for today. Do you have any questions? You can ask some questions now if you have any.
So, I think you were talking before regarding the suffering, like how, as human, like we concentrate more on our happiness, but we're not ready to accept the suffering. So maybe like as human, like so how do we prepare ourselves?
So. Because dungel gorne what tanda de dungel nge bartu in yongores yene yang tanda nga so de so gi de wale tonang chege tu yene yang de dungel di ne bartu yongye de yene kanjo structure chego
다 동네 예봐도 용걸 쓰라 다 근데 동네 유튜브에 있나 대화 되네 동네 용 되기로 와 좋아 다 대화 되봐대 전부 평균만 도 다 대외 교과를 제주도 주다지에 개치 못 찾되기도 와. 다 되는 이번 거서 코 토마면만 개월 년 차도 말아서 대화 교회 망고 사요래. 동네 교회 망고 사요래. 다 대외 교다 동네 교 동네 교 망아 이외 내가 요래. 가서 말아서 좋아도 빼는 거죠. 지금 콘도 당 대차당 세당에서 같은 누가 쉬울도 와. 지금 선바 상고지 현재 편바 좀도 지난번 가서 가서 야보다 지금 요다 얘는 뒤냐 삼로 년발을 주주에 먹고 싶지 용 되기도 와. 근데 가르서는 또 지금만 공배 온게 또 용 되기도 와. 되게 용 되도 또 다다데 개왕가 맞들 지금 주주 찍라 밀류래 되게 내 야고 사네 되게 지 고급 중화를 또 내 년바데 지금 개와시 뭐 되게 또도 쪼아 된다 내 먹고 된대 요래. 요르바다 되네요. 다 되네요. 그 요바데 하고베 돈에 샥tom지에 나는 사도 마사에 탑시지에 동에 중화 임바 이네 마기바 마제바잖아 동에 딜라 때네 아니 동에 대회 규주위에 배주 땅 두어지지
So yes, it's true, isn't it, that even though we want happiness, what we get is often suffering. And so this is really, it becomes necessary for us to not so much concentrate or focus on the various experiences then of happiness and suffering that we have now, but rather think in terms of the cause, and to really focus on the different causes. And that here we must understand that even at birth, by the very fact of being born, we already have like a massive store of causes on our mind stream that we bring into this world, this life with us. Causes that will lead to happiness, causes that will lead to suffering. And that we know also that our propensity for negativity, for allowing the way anger overcomes us, the way a desire overcomes us, the way attachment overcomes us, etc., that this is so strong in us, and this shows how much we are habituated to these kinds of negative mental afflictions, and it is carried over from previous lives. Whereas on the other side, when it comes to virtue, to doing good things, it's a lot more difficult. It's a lot more difficult for even us to have that kind of imagination to do virtue and to continue to carry it out very well from the very beginning, from the motivation to the action to the dedication, etc. And it shows that again, it shows a lack of habituation with that sort of thinking, and it really comes down to that. It's as to what we are most habituated to do. Whatever we are, whatever we feed, that's what will grow. And that in terms of our negativity, then we've got to really think about purifying the negativities that we have on our mind stream, and that's possible, and then restraining our mind by adopting an ethical point of view, to not engage and really restrain ourselves from frustrations and angers, and when we lose our control of mind and so on. And so develop that sort of habit. And then also, of course, to supplement that by developing kindness and the virtuous minds as well. And so this is how we both achieve the happiness we want and deal with the suffering that we don't want. And so also that we need to deal with suffering when it inevitably arises, and not allow suffering to make us unhappy, but rather not only see it as something that arose from a negative cause, and therefore you say to yourself, okay, I don't like this suffering, therefore I will not engage in that kind of cause anymore. So you're using it to really to ensure a lack of suffering in the future for you, and even to turn it around and create a virtuous cause, thereby ensuring more happiness for you in the future.
지다 저게 렌데 남샤 야부 신경 제바이나 렌데 남샤 딩네 예반 얘기 제바이나 동해 중원도 지다 강에 요르다 same thing 들라 쫀나 쇼고 요르 오 딜레 녀바사 제부터 다 매바 차주고도 와 삼삼제네 다 디기 중원도 지다 대화 요르데 이나 또 방보스 오녜랭 상보사바데 매바 차주고도 와서 방나게 되지 와 된데 그 삼로 지기 용투고도나 아니 렌데 남샤다 또 띵사부시에 따뜻고 요와.
It is said that the person who has a very profound understanding of the presentation of the law of cause and effect, that when suffering arises for that person, even though it may cause pain, yet deep down they have a sense of joy, actually, because they can go, oh, this means that a negative cause that I created is now ripening, and it's being exhausted. It's coming to its end. That path is finishing, and I won't have to experience that again. I'm dealing with that. And so, and the opposite too, when, for that kind of person, when happiness arises, even though they enjoy, of course, the happy feeling, but deep down they also have almost a little regret, because they go, oh, this was a virtuous cause and now I'm using it up, you know. And so this kind of comes to that's bringing the end to that karmic path as well. So it's saying that somebody who has a really profound understanding of the law of cause and effect responds in that way.
What is it? I'm going to 가서 말해서 남주 강에 차오도 아니 지금 강가 주고 강가 또 되더라 뒤 내서 뒤 넣다 깬 강가를 유지잖아 중문에 소수 쪽으로 와 샤바드가 깨래 다 깨가 뒤가 내가 전에 뒤 전에 연구도서는 하루 되자다 셰다다 컨트롤다 된대로 국업 숙식부 시고있잖아도 아니 다다 동네 좋아하면서 모두는 동네 규칙 되고 요 봐. 뭐다디 내가 자 되고 요래.
And so, you know, this is, you know, quite the opposite for us, isn't it? when we meet with frustrations and problems, for example, you know, like we're so quick to point a finger at, you know, that's their fault or his fault or her fault, or, you know, it's all there. Where it's, you know, we fail to understand that we own the actual substantial cause of that problem, of that suffering. Everything else out there, they're just the cooperative conditions. But the main issue is the cause I created for this to happen. And we need to really understand and own that. Otherwise, you know, it's kind of like when problems arise, we react with anger, hatred, frustration, irritation. And so that's only adding fuel to the fire, creating more negative causes to create more of that kind of problem. And that's, you know, very unskillful behavior, because not only is it destroying any peace of mind you have at that moment, but it's also creating causes for your future unhappiness. And so really, for us, with the kind of human intelligence we have, we should be able to transform both the feelings of suffering and happiness into future causes of happiness, and as well as that, to alleviate the on the spot feeling of pain or suffering, and to increase the feeling of happiness.
It is the mind training lojong said ngaranzo danda rang dunga rang ro dang ganga dunga nenga dunga janjang ge da koyu traditional de khoanal de lojong ge nyamle de gal khansa jematona ene gange shibu chede lojong ge namle yago jedowa ina ene da gange meding su chade gwa.
So this is known as mind training, and this is a crucial aspect of the Buddhist training, because it's saying, you know, that such is the reality of being here in cyclic existence, that it's in the nature of suffering, and suffering is inevitable, that if you have no mind training, then you're in for a very hard time, because you've no way of dealing with the problems that you encounter. But if you do have mind training and you're good at it, then you don't have to have any problems at all. And so it often points out, yes, that, you know, people pay a lot of attention to the martial arts like Kung Fu, etc. And nowadays, to kind of defend so on, protect themselves. But Genla says, no, this mind training is actually internal Kung Fu. It's the best way of protecting yourself.
어디 쉬우지 거. 다디 이제는 안 쓰 미끼고 대토고 와.
And people can be very happy within all the time. So let's leave it at that for today. So sorry, I didn't get to the actual graduated path teachings. And so we do a prayer called the Lam Rim prayer towards the end of the book.
29.
Page 29. Lam Rim dedication prayer. From my two collections, vast as space that I have amassed, from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by my practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. Going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time, by even this graded path to enlightenment completed, due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their children. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.